Who wants to make breakfast burritos with me? Hi, I'm Val, and I made the website Very Vegan Val, and I love a savory breakfast. But to be perfectly honest, I don't always love cooking a savory breakfast. More often than not, my breakfast is either a slice of toast with nutritional yeast or nothing, I just skip it and move on to lunch. Well, today we're gonna help change that habit. I'm gonna make 3 different burritos today. All of them will be somewhat breakfast appropriate. They will all be freezer friendly, and they will all, of course, be delicious. I want to preface this by saying that I'm not making what I would consider an official recipe today. I will write down what I did so y'all can mimic this to the extent you want, but these aren't recipes that I've tested or made before. This is just me cooking, and hopefully some of it will be inspirational to you. Let's cook. We're gonna start with roasting some potatoes. These are just russet potatoes. And I'm doing a fairly small cube. And if you wanna save yourself some time, you could also just buy like a hash brown or a tater tot or whatever potato type you enjoy frozen. I like to leave the skins on when I cook potatoes, whenever possible, for a few different reasons. Firstly, most of the nutrients in the potato is in the skin. Secondly, it can add a really interesting textural variation. And then thirdly, I'm lazy and I don't like peeling potatoes. 4 potatoes. Just gonna plop it on a baking sheet. And then we're gonna cover it with some oil. There's like no salt left in here. I'm not using a crazy amount of salt. Pepper. And some spices. I'm gonna use garlic powder, a little bit of sage, dried thyme, some chili powder, oregano, and a nice pinch of nutritional yeast. Really just use whatever you have and whatever you like. And then we're just gonna toss it around to coat all the potatoes. Now that we've spread them out, I'm gonna pop it in the oven for about 25 minutes at 425. After about 25 minutes in the oven, these are soft. There's not like a lot of crispiness on them, but I think that's fine because we're gonna be freezing them anyway, so they're good to go. Let's go ahead and make the next ingredient for these burritos. I'm gonna use TBP, which is a really budget-friendly protein source. And I'm just gonna mix equal parts TVP and water in a bowl. I'm just using water that's hot from the sink. And I'm gonna add just a couple tablespoons of soy sauce. Mix it up, and then we'll just set it aside and let it rehydrate. I'm gonna add some kale to these ones as well. Just gonna start off by chopping this all into small pieces. And then we're just gonna steam it. And by steam it, I mean microwave it. I'm gonna start by microwaving it for about a minute. It's softened a little bit, so I'm just gonna add some salt. And this will, both make it taste better, but also help it release some moisture. And I'm just gonna cover it with a plate and cook it for probably another 2 minutes in the microwave. Soft and tender, perfect. We're gonna finish up the TVP. I started by heating some oil in a skillet and adding the onions. We're gonna add the TVP. And to that, I'm gonna add some salsa. About 6 ounces. And here we are. It's very savory and has a lot of flavor from the salsa we added. Now let's assemble some burritos. I microwave my tortillas for about 30 seconds to make them bend more easily. Start with your seasoned potatoes. Add some steamed kale and top with the TVP. Then wrap them up. I do it like this. Sort of squish it down the long ways and then cover the 2 sides like an envelope. Bring the top over, pushing the filling in as you roll it across. Now we're gonna freeze them until solid before transferring them into a Ziploc freezer bag. We're also gonna make a really basic tofu scramble. Now normally I would add some more vegetables and things to it, but I'm not gonna bother. I'm also not gonna bother cleaning out my pan. I just used it for my TVP and I don't care. We're gonna start with a little splash of oil and add about half a diced onion. Next, we'll add an entire block of tofu. I'm using a medium firm tofu today. It works well with most textures. Now let's add some key ingredients. Nutritional yeast, a couple tablespoons to a quarter cup. Black salt. As you can see, it's not black, but it does have a sulfury flavor. I added a healthy pinch, but I may go back and add more, we'll see. Finally, we're gonna add some turmeric for color. That was way more than I meant to. Yeah, definitely more turmeric than I wanted. Add some garlic powder, about half a teaspoon, and it could definitely use some more black salt. Great, I'm just gonna cook it for a couple more minutes to lose a little bit of the excess water, and then we'll call it done. I'm also gonna steam about 2 cups of broccoli, just like I did with the kale, in the microwave. Let's make some smoky mushrooms, starting with 2 cloves of roughly chopped garlic, and then we're just gonna throw in our mushrooms. Just about 8 ounces of thinly sliced cremini mushrooms. I'm gonna throw about half a teaspoon of fennel seeds in here. These mushrooms have lost a lot of moisture already. So I'm gonna add a bunch of smoked paprika. If you want a smoky flavor but you don't want a paprika-y flavor, consider liquid smoke instead. We're also gonna add a tablespoon or so of soy sauce. And then we're just gonna cook it until most of the liquid has been absorbed or evaporated. Start with a scoopful of jarred salsa. I chose one with corn and beans in it. Smoky mushrooms. And steamed broccoli. I'm gonna cut up and roast this delicata squash. And then I'm gonna cut them into long strips like this. Now, delicata is kind of a special winter squash because you don't have to peel it. The skin is perfectly tender and edible. Again, I'm very lazy about peeling things. Now I'm just gonna cut these strips down the length to make cubes. And we'll start with a little bit of oil. I think I'm gonna add some caraway seeds. They always remind me a bit of rye bread or bagels. I roughly cut a couple cloves of garlic and we're just gonna toss that on too. Salt. A little bit of apple cider vinegar, just a splash. I think I'm gonna keep it at that. Let's just put this in the oven with the potatoes. Next up, we're gonna make some brown rice. Add a nice couple tablespoons of tomato paste and mix it in a little. I'm also gonna add a teaspoon or so of better than bouillon paste. Then we're just gonna make the rice like normal. Finally, we're just gonna do a really simple refried bean because I'm getting a little bit tired of cooking. I'm gonna add a couple cloves of minced garlic and about a can's worth of beans and about a quarter cup of water. Let's add about a quarter cup of that salsa as well. Now we're just gonna heat it up and mash as we go. And as it heats up, it should get smoother and more silky, and then I'll add salt and pepper to taste, and that is all I'm doing here. And here it is done. A scoop of our seasoned brown rice, some of our beans, and some of our roasted delicata. And I just so happen to have tons of vegan mozzarella laying around, so I'm gonna add some of that as well. We're using BioLife today. All right, so I made up my burritos and I've got them completely frozen. Time to defrost them and give them a taste. I just froze these on a sheet pan until they were solid and then plopped them all back into the bag that the tortillas came in. If you're gonna be freezing them for a longer amount of time, you may want a better storage method, like wrapping them individually, but we're probably gonna eat these pretty quickly. Here's the method I'm gonna use to reheat these up. I'm going to just gently wet my fingers and touch the burrito to add just a tiny bit of moisture. And then I'm going to put them on a plate, cover them with a bowl, and microwave for 3 minutes. After that, we'll remove the bowl and microwave for an additional minute. Then I know I'm gonna like it a little bit better if it's crispy, so I'm just gonna sear it off in a skillet. It's breakfast time. Let's go. Starting off with the first burrito we made. This is the one with the potato, TVP, and kale. Cheers. That's so delicious. It's the perfect amount of moisture with the TVP and the potato. The crispiness is perfect. And then the pop of green from the kale just makes it feel complete. Next up, we have our burrito with tofu scramble, broccoli, and smoky mushrooms. I will say that when I microwaved this one, it did get kind of overly wet compared to the other ones. If you replicate this, I might recommend using an extra firm tofu instead of a medium tofu to try and reduce the amount of water in there. In the end though, it did crisp up quite nicely. This one definitely feels very breakfasty. I think because I come from a culture that very much associates eggs with breakfast, this tofu scramble feels eggy, feels breakfasty. I love the broccoli. It adds that like savory vegetable flavor, and then the mushrooms that are smoky. Oh my gosh, they're so good. I'm not sure which one I like more. Finally, we have rice, beans, and delicata squash. This is so good. The sweetness and the creaminess from the squash paired with that little bit of creaminess from the vegan cheese is delicious. Oh, and the creaminess of the beans. The rice adds a little bit of textural variation and bulk to this burrito. I was gonna pick a favorite and I don't want to cop out, but I don't think I can. They were all pretty delicious, and each individual burrito was pretty simple to put together. Crisping it up I thought was a really nice touch at the end. I know some people don't want to use oil in their cooking. If you want to crisp it up and not use oil, just stick it in your toaster oven. You'll still get that same effect. But sometimes I think the microwave can leave things a little bit waterlogged, and so having a toast afterwards would help. Let me know in the comments which breakfast burrito looked best to you, or what your favorite ingredients in a breakfast burrito are. Until next time, like this video, subscribe, and try and be kind.